Picture a crime scene for a second.
Okay.
A violent act, a victim, a perpetrator. Like in a strictly mechanical sense. It's
Right.
basically an equation, right?
Yeah, yeah. A sequence of events.
Exactly. An action occurs, a consequence follows, and the legal system steps in to, calculate the facts. And it's supposed to be clean.
But we know it never really is.
No, not at all. Because the actual truth of that event becomes this completely different, incredibly elusive animal when every single witness remembers the exact same moment entirely differently.
Because suddenly that clean math equation you're talking about, it just dissolves.
Yeah.
You're no longer calculating empirical facts. You are navigating this remarkably messy, emotionally driven, and frankly, inherently flawed recording device, which is the human brain.
Right.
The equation is basically replaced by interpretation.
And that collision between the cold mechanics of a crime and the really fractured subjective nature of human memory, that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're taking a deep dive into Akira Kurosawa's landmark 1950 film, Rashomon.
Such a masterpiece.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to do this, we've pulled together a phenomenal stack of sources to guide the investigation. We've got essays from the Criterion Collection, a really profound retrospective by Roger Ebert.
Oh, that Ebert piece is fantastic.
It's so good. We also have historical analyses from the Sight and Sound and British Film Institute archives, plus some academic papers exploring the intersection of psychology and law. So it's a dense, incredibly rich collection of material to go through.
It is. But before we take another step, I do want to establish some firm boundaries for this deep dive.
Good call.
Yeah, if you are listening to this and you haven't seen the film, you can breathe easy. We are not going to summarize the plot, and we are certainly not going to spoil the ending.
Right, we're not doing a movie recap here.
Exactly. We are here to investigate the mechanics of why we believe what we believe. We're going to explore how memory, actively reshapes events, the architecture of subjective reality, and really why moral uncertainty might be the most potent storytelling tool we have.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. I was reading the BFI archive notes, and what really struck me isn't just the narrative structure. Like, telling a story from 4 different perspectives is cool.
Sure.
But it's how Kurosawa fundamentally altered the machinery of the film medium itself to achieve it.
Yes. That's the real innovation.
Because before this, the cinematic camera was basically, it was a court stenographer.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. It just sat there, impassive, recording the undeniable physical reality of the room, like the all-knowing eye of God. Audiences had this deeply ingrained, unspoken contract with the director that the lens simply does not lie.
Right. You trusted the camera.
You trust it completely. And Kurosawa seemed to just look at that contract and tear it to shreds. It's like he turned the camera from an objective court stenographer into a highly biased character witness. Did he basically just turn the camera into a liar?
I mean, yeah. That analogy hits the nail on the head. The cinematic language of the time heavily relied on the camera as a neutral, all-seeing observer. If a character lied in the dialogue, the camera would usually tip you off, by showing you the objective reality.
Like a wink to the audience?
Exactly. But Kurosawa forces the camera to adopt the subjective viewpoint of the person telling the story. He manifests their internal reality visually.
Wow.
And looking at the sight and sound analysis, it's really fascinating to see how he achieved this technically, because it wasn't just a conceptual trick. It was totally embedded in the lighting and the blocking.
Right. The forest itself becomes an accomplice to the subjectivity.
Totally.
The critics point out how Kurosawa points the camera directly up into the sun through the canopy of the trees.
Which, by the way, was considered a massive technical faux pas at the time.
Wait, really? You weren't supposed to do that?
Oh, absolutely not. You risked ruining the film Stark. But he did it anyway.
That's wild. Because the effect is so striking. The light is constantly dappled, it's shifting, it's glaring directly into the lens.
Yeah.
It creates this visual instability before a single word of dialogue is even spoken. So you, sitting in the audience, you're immediately disoriented. You're visually being told that you cannot trust your own eyes.
Furthermore, the camera movement itself actually dictates the emotional truth of the narrator.
Oh, right, the pacing of the shots.
Exactly. When the bandit tells his, wildly exaggerated, boastful version of the duel, the camera is kinetic. It's erratic and sweeping, matching his frenetic energy.
Because he wants to look like this chaotic badass.
Exactly. But then when the samurai's story is told, the camera becomes formal. It's static. It's rigid.
Which reflects his social class.
Right. His rigid adherence to his class and his character's honor. Kurosawa doesn't just have characters tell different stories. He creates entirely different visual universes for each of them.
That is so cool.
He literally weaponizes the medium against the audience's expectation of objective truth.
But, turning the camera into a liar only works if the lies themselves are believable. And that forces us to look at why these characters are feeding us these fragmented realities in the first place.
Right.
When I first dove into the Criterion essays, my instinct was to treat this like a heist movie.
Oh, sure. Like they're plotting something.
Yeah. I assumed these characters were actively conning the magistrate, playing some complex, multidimensional chess game to escape a murder charge.
Mm-hmm.
But the essays push back on that idea completely.
They do, because framing it as a calculated con job actually diminishes the psychological depth of the film.
Okay, unpack that a bit. Are they conning each other, or are they just victims of their own instincts?
It's the latter. The essays make a really vital distinction here. We are not witnessing malicious deceptions. We are witnessing the raw, unfiltered defense mechanisms of the human ego.
Wow.
These characters are not necessarily lying to the court. They are lying to themselves.
That's a huge difference.
It is. The human ego is astonishingly fragile, and it will go to extraordinary lengths to protect its host from the crushing weight of reality.
It's like the ultimate PR spin.
Yes. You're right.
I mean, we all do this on some level, right? Think about a time you had a blowout argument with a coworker, or maybe your partner.
Oh, definitely.
A week later, you recount that argument to a friend. And automatically, without even consciously plotting a deception, you soften your own sharp edges.
You are suddenly the voice of reason.
Right. You recall your tone as being measured, calm, entirely reasonable. While you remember the other person as being completely unhinged,
Oh, absolutely.
you edit the memory to ensure you remain the protagonist, or at least, the justified victim of your own narrative. Your brain is generating a press release that allows you to live with yourself.
And that real-world resonance is exactly why Rashomon transcends its era. Perspective defines reality. The essays delve into how cognitive dissonance functions within these specific characters. If the samurai were to admit to cowardice, his entire identity, which is built on centuries of martial honor, it would instantly vaporize.
It'd be nothing.
Right. And if the bandit admits his crime was messy and pathetic rather than this glorious battle of titans, his mythical self-image is completely destroyed.
So they literally need these lies.
They recount these wild contradictory variations because they physically and psychologically cannot afford the objective truth.
Facing the unvarnished reality would just shatter them.
Exactly.
So the camera is merely documenting their psychological survival tactics. That entirely reframes the film for me. It takes it from a murder mystery into a tragedy about human frailty.
It really does.
But, okay, if we were all walking around locked inside our own heads, constantly generating our own PR spin just to survive the day, what happens when we collide with a system that literally requires objective truth to function?
Oh, this is the really fascinating part.
Right. This brings us to the academic and legal papers in our stack, which explore how this film spill out of the cinema and into actual jurisprudence.
Yeah, it's remarkably rare for a piece of fiction to birth a formal scientific term. But the psychological phenomenon Kurosawa crystallized was so precise that we now actually have the Rashomon effect.
The Rashomon effect.
Yes. The academic papers define it not simply as people having differing opinions. It's a situation where the inherent subjectivity of perception makes the establishment of a singular, factual reality practically impossible.
Man.
It highlights the terrifying gap between what actually happened and what is capable of being known.
I kept thinking about this in the context of, sitting in a modern jury box.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Imagine you're there. You have the weight of someone's freedom in your hands. You watch witnesses take the stand, they swear an oath, they testify. And let's assume they aren't even committing intentional perjury.
Right, they believe what they're saying.
They genuinely, deeply believe the words coming out of their mouths. But their memories have been warped by the adrenaline of the moment, their physical vantage point, their innate prejudices, and, like we just talked about, the protective armor of their egos. You are being handed 4 different fragmented subjective realities. And yet, the judge is asking you to deliver a single binary verdict, guilty or not guilty. So what does this all mean for the justice system?
Well, that is the core conflict the legal papers examine. The justice system is fundamentally binary. It requires a definitive narrative to assign liability or, mete out punishment.
That does have an answer.
Right. It operates on the assumption that facts are solid, immutable objects that can just be gathered up and weighed. But the Rashomon effect demonstrates that human psychology operates on a spectrum of interpretation.
Yeah.
We are asking a profoundly flawed, subjective instrument human memory to produce a perfect objective result.
It feels like an impossible demand.
It really is.
Like the legal system wants the broken bone on an X-ray, right? It's either fractured or it isn't. But memories, it's more as a watercolor painting left out in the rain. Every time you recall it, the colors bleed and shift.
That is a beautiful way to put it. And Roger Ebert captures this tension brilliantly in his retrospective.
Oh, what did he say about it?
He points out that society builds its institutions, its courts, its laws, its historical records on the comforting illusion of objective truth.
The comforting illusion, wow.
Yeah. We desperately need to believe in a solid ground beneath our feet. And what Kurosawa does is violently strip away that comfort.
He just pulls the rug right out.
Completely. He exposes the terrifying reality that the ground is entirely subjective. Ebert notes that the true horror of the film isn't the murder itself.
Right.
It is the existential anxiety of realizing we might never truly know what happened in any given situation.
It's pure existential dread disguised as a police procedural.
Yes, exactly.
Because you go in expecting the detective to gather everyone in the drawing room by the third act, present the bloody knife, lay out a perfectly synchronized timeline, and just give you closure.
We love closure.
We do. Modern storytelling is obsessed with tying up loose ends because it makes us feel safe. We want to know exactly who the villain is so we can go to sleep at night.
And Rashomon adamantly refuses to give you that safety net.
No neat little bow at the end.
Nope. It refuses to pat you on the head and validate one specific narrative. The moral uncertainty in the storytelling is its most defining feature.
Yeah.
Kurosawa was not interested in solving a puzzle. He was interested in exposing the labyrinth. By denying the audience a clean resolution, the film stops being a story you watch and becomes a mirror you look into.
Wait, how so? Because you're forced to choose a side anyway.
Exactly. When the film leaves the truth ambiguous, your brain is still desperate for a conclusion. So you inevitably decide which character you trust the most. But the sources point out that who you instinctively choose to believe, whether you side with the bandit's romanticized chaos, the samurai's tragic honor, or the woodcutter's seemingly pragmatic observation, it reveals absolutely nothing about the objective facts of the crime.
Oh, man. It only reveals you.
Yes, it only reveals your own biases, your own values, and your own psychological framing. The film judges you, not the characters.
That is a staggering piece of artistic engineering.
Isn't it?
Turns the viewer into the final unreliable witness.
Precisely.
Looking back at the breadth of what we've unpacked today, from Kurosawa transforming the camera from a court stenographer into a biased character witness, to the fragile armor of the human ego churning out subconscious PR spin, to the profound legal anxieties of the Rashomon effect, I mean, it all points to a rather humbling reality.
Very humbling.
The pursuit of a single, unvarnished, entirely objective truth is incredibly messy, and often it's just a complete illusion.
We are all navigating the world, locked inside our own subjective bubbles, colliding with one another, and just trying our best to make sense of the impact. The film endures because it forces us to accept that ambiguity is the natural state of the human condition.
It completely changes how you view a disagreement, a courtroom, or even your own past. You realize that your absolute certainty is often just a byproduct of your perspective.
And on that note of certainty, I want to leave you with something to consider. Something that pushes this 1950s masterpiece squarely into our modern reality.
Okay, let's hear it.
If our memories are essentially just our ego's PR spin, heavily edited to protect our sense of self, it begs a critical question about the future. As we increasingly outsource our memories to digital recordings, body cameras, social media archives, and artificial intelligence, are we actually capturing objective truth? Or are we simply building massive, digitized Rashomon forests, teaching our machines how to lie for us, ensuring that our subjective spins outlive us forever?